now we're going to get ready to put the first coat of colored paint on. So I always like to get my colors out and ready. So this is a fluorescent green. That'll be for the belly. This is a tropical green. It's a darker green for the upper sides. Now this is a wicked color. It's a moss green. This is the really dark stuff that goes across the back. So I've given these guys a really good shake. I'm just going to put them aside for the moment. I'm going to pour some of this right away, so I'm going to give it one last shake. And even though I said I wasn't going to do too much about the airbrush, I thought I would show you how I mix the paints, at least once anyway. They're all kind of the same. So you take out a goodly amount and then you kind of test it. Now this brush is dry, by the way. It was in the water, but I dried it out. I don't want to get any more water in there. I know it's water-based paint, it won't hurt it, but I want to thin it with reducer. So they suggest anywhere from 50 to 30% thinning. And the way I test that is I kind of run it on the side, and if it runs down, it's probably pretty good. Now this is running down kind of slow, so I'll put a little bit more in. Now prior to this, I have connected my painting airbrush, made sure it worked. Okay, now I am very close to getting ready. So I'm going to put this paint aside just for the moment. We're going to take the airbrush, put a little bit of water in it, we'll dump out the majority of it and we'll empty it. So the procedure is going to be, we're going to spray some paint, a light coat, and then dry it with the heat gun, and then put some more paint until I'm happy with how dense the paint is. Now this brings up a conversation about transparent paint, opaque paint. You can get both usually, maybe not in all the colors, but I like to use transparent paint because then I can control how dark it is by the number of coats that I put on. So for example, I'll be putting 3 or 4 coats possibly, depending on how it looks, and drying in between coats. But I'm also going to be spraying around the sides, because the lower part of the lure should also have probably a little darker green here and here, and what I mean by darker is a darker shade of this color, because what's going to happen later is I'm going to take this entire area here and use this darker green, and I'm going to blend it, so it's going to be darker up top here, and it's going to blend into the paint, this neon paint. Now how I do that is I use a simple cardboard to shield where I don't want the paint to go. So not horribly complicated, but it's not trivial either. Okay, so we're ready to go, and I've got the air pump set to about 10 pounds, and so I have refocused the camera so you can see the whole lure, and I'm going to start to spray my first coat of color. Now one of the things I like to do just at the beginning is, remember when I was talking about the airbrush earlier, I said you could push down and get air and not paint. So this is not a bad time to give it a little puff of air to make sure there's no little bits of fluff or anything like that on it. So I'm going to push it down. Just use a tiny little bowl. Obviously 10 pounds is what is not going to provide much, but that's what I've got the air pump set for. So now I'm going to test out the paint, make sure it works. There it goes. And here we go on our first coat. Got to be a little careful on the first coat because if you try to put too much paint on, it'll run on you. So you can see that that's just got a bit of a ghost. And now I'm going to dry it, and the first time you hear this dryer going is going to represent the true length of drying. In the next parts as we go forward, the drying I'll start, but I won't force you to sit through drying paint. It's kind of like watching grass grow. It's not all that exciting. So here we go. Okay, we're ready for some more paint. There's going to be multiple layers. So we're going to start off a little bit on the side as well. I'm going to go up to the lateral line. And put more in the middle here. As a reminder that I can actually do blending with one color, and if I haven't said this before, how you do that is because this is transparent paint, you can decide how much color you want in that center area, and then as you work out to either side you can have more color, so you can blend with a single color. Now, as I go to the side here, I'm going to be going much deeper color, and I'm going to do from the lateral line down to the belly. There we go again. Don't want to go too crazy because you don't want your paint to dribble. I also do all the way up in the head. So I'm going to continue to add paint. I'm going to try and start to stay away a little bit from the center because that's probably as dark as I want, but I might go just a little bit inside on that aluminum. So here we go again. can see it starting to darken. So if you may be wondering how dark can you go, and the answer may be obvious to some, but it may not be obvious to everyone, you can only go as dark as the paint that you're painting. So we'll never get it that dark because it's on aluminum, but we can go 4 or 5 more coats here. And here we go again. We're going to put some more on. Okay, I think that's about it. You can see the final color is still quite a bit lighter, but that's because it's the paint is transparent and you can see the shiny aluminum under it. Don't know if you can see the nice blending, and the belly is just a little bit lighter right down the strip, and same on this side, but that's probably as dark as you're going to get it. So we're ready to set up for the next phase, and what we're going to do is I have a little jig, and we're going to take this lure and we're going to mount it in that jig, and it just makes... So I got the second color. This is the tropical green. I got it all mixed up. I'm going to put it into the little cup. One of the things you want to do is to make sure that you always spray out a little bit, just in case there's any of that lighter color in there. And then what I'm going to do, again, I start off lure, and I start to spray. Not too much at first. Now you can see where it's sprayed a little bit on the back. No problem. The darker green will cover that. As I mentioned, it's always the same, that dark colors cover lighter colors. Okay, we're going to put another layer on. Again, I start off. So I haven't started to blend below the lateral line yet, so I'm concentrated on making that upper green. Okay, you can see I've splattered a little bit onto the back, but the darker green will definitely cover that. Now I've given this 2 coats already and dried them both, but I want to focus on getting this darker, and then I'm going to blend it in a little bit below that lateral line, so the lighter fluorescent green melds very nicely, blends very nicely in with the darker green. So let's do some more. And again, I'm going to dry it off. You can build up quite a number of layers, and as you've noticed, this dark green is extremely... So you may notice that this spot is quite a bit lighter, and what I did is there was a piece of something black on there which I happened to notice. So I picked it off, and of course that takes the color with it. But because there's 2 or 3 more coats, I should be okay. So now we're on coat number 4. So in that coat, I started to go below the lateral line. I've probably got 1 more coat left. And the funny thing is about painting on top of something so shiny, when you're done the painting, it looks kind of matte, maybe semi-gloss, but certainly matte, and it doesn't look, you know, that doesn't have that wow feeling. But what will happen is, when you put your first coat of epoxy on this lure, all of a sudden it's transformed into something that just simply glows. And there's a couple of wow moments when you're making lures. When you're doing the foundation and putting the loops, you know, that's kind of the run-of-the-mill work that you do, and there's not a lot of wow moments. However, there's 2 wow moments coming up. One, after the painting is all done, you'll pop in the eye. Well, that eye makes that lure come alive. It just makes it look like, you know exactly where you're going, and it's starting to look really, really good. The second thing, the second wow moment, is when you give it that first coat of epoxy. Because I'll tell you, all of a sudden, all the epoxies, the 2-part epoxies, are high gloss, and when you're actually putting it on, it's amazing, because it just comes alive and there's light glinting off it, and so we'll get there. So let's dry this guy off, and we'll put another layer on. Okay, so you've noticed I put a clip on here that just slants the lure up a little bit so I can see better. So maybe 1, maybe 2 more coats. Let's see where we go. Check the paint, make sure we got lots. So I'm thinking that that's looking probably as good as it's going to look. I went down the side of the tail here probably a little bit more than I wanted, but that's okay. So we'll dry it up. I've decided that 1 more coat is going to happen. Well, this side is now done. I can lift this whole rig up and turn it around to do the other side, but it's really the same. So The next time you'll see this lure is when it's time to put on the dark back. So now it's time to finish off the back. This is where this little piece of paper comes in, and you want the dark green to come down just over that edge of the aluminum tape. So let's see how we can do this. Now I'm also going to have to do it along the top. Sometimes you have to stand up to do that, but so there's the first coat, and like all the others, it's very important to So this is the first coat of dark green. It doesn't look any greener, darker than the previous coat, the second coat, but after 2 or 3 layers it will certainly darken up. Okay, here we're gonna put some more on. It's quite important to spray over the back and try to get that edge of the aluminum on the far side. Sometimes it's very difficult to cover up, sometimes you can't, and sometimes you get a lighter streak, which is not a preference, but sometimes it does happen. I like to bring the darkest paint down and kind of cut the eye in half. So I'm not quite there yet, but let's try this and keep going. And now we're pretty much ready to do the other side, which I'm not going to be showing you, but so this lure is now done as far as the main body painting, and I'm holding it at a bit of an angle so you can see the distinct 3 different colors. They are matte right now, even though the light is shining off them. They're not bright colors yet, and when we give it our first coat of gloss 2-part epoxy, these colors will just jump out. Now, the next step that you'll see, I'm gonna let this paint dry, probably overnight, and then we're gonna install the eyes. I'll show you some choices that we have, and that's a real wow moment.